Welcome to Baptist Press This Week. I'm Laura Erlinson. The 2024 SBC Annual Meeting is just around the corner. And as messengers get ready to head to Indy, we're talking to the known presidential candidates. This week, we talk with Dr. David Allen, a professor at Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary. Stay tuned for that interview in just a few moments. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Well, anytime. Just as we get started here, I'd love to hear more about your background. Why don't you tell us your testimony?
Well, thank you for asking. I was born and raised in Rome, Georgia, and I was a part of West Rome Baptist Church. My parents were members there. Actually, I was attending church 9 months before I was born. My parents were very faithful. And the Lord saved me when I was 9 years of age. I remember it still very vividly, and came to know Christ at the age of 9 and was baptized. And then when I was 16, God called me to preach. And I was a junior in high school playing baseball, not very good at it, but just enjoying life there. And God just reached out and made it very clear to me that He was calling me to preach His word. And so I immediately began to think about what would that mean and what would I do. And so I moved in 1975 to Dallas, Texas to go to college and then seminary at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. I already knew where I would go to seminary even before I knew where I was going to college, which is very unusual. Yeah. But graduated from college in 1978, got married that year, and I graduated from college in May, got married July 1st, started seminary in August, and
Wow.
did my master's work there at Southwestern Seminary from 1978 to 1981, graduating in December of 81. And during those early days, I was a staff member at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Dallas.
Okay.
In fact, the very first staff member ever hired. Prestonwood started the
Wow.
first Sunday of February of 1977, and I became the first staff member there on the last Sunday of the month of February 1977. So I'm a charter member there, and served there for 5 years. And then my first pastorate from 1982 to 1998. My children were born during that time, and or before that time, and during that time from 1982 and following. And I did PhD work at the University of Texas at Arlington, and pastored 2 churches full time. Have pastored 13 interim churches. I've done 14 interims. I did one church twice as their interim. Lots of experience from that standpoint as well. And of course, served our convention in many different ways at the local, state, and national level.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's a
So
little
it
bit of
sounds
my.
like a very Southern Baptist kind of a story. And so
Very much,
a very
very much,
cooperative program kind of a story. So
very much.
talk to me about the cooperative program and the importance of CP as you see it.
Oh, listen, the cooperative program is absolute genius. The cooperative program is, in my judgment, the absolute best method of allowing a group of churches to pool their resources together in a significant way to do far more for the kingdom of God than they could ever do individually. I am a product of the cooperative program. I really am. I'm grateful for Southern Baptist who provided, helped me. My tuition was probably half of what it would have been at Southwestern Seminary had the cooperative program not been in existence. And during the years of my pastorate, as well as my interim pastorates, I was strongly in favor of trying to help my churches to continually to increase what we give to the cooperative program. I think it's so vital. And I'm grateful to God for what He has done through the cooperative program through the years in terms of local missions, what happens through NAM, but also through our IMB. I had a son who served on the mission field through the International Mission Board. He and his wife served in Egypt for a period of time. And so the cooperative program is the bloodline and the lifeline of Southern Baptist. And I think it is so vital that we support it. When I travel around and churches tell me, look, they tell me, pastors often tell me their concerns about some aspects of the convention. And they tell me that they have diminished their giving, or they've cut back or curtailed their giving to the cooperative program. While I understand those concerns, in fact, share some of them, but nevertheless, I encourage those churches, don't stop giving to the cooperative program. No, please continue to give and increase your giving, because there are so many wonderful things that the cooperative program supports. And I think it's vital that we be supportive of it. I'm grateful for the cooperative program.
So tell me how you might tell your students, as you've trained probably thousands of pastors and future pastors over your years in seminaries, what do you tell them about how to promote the cooperative program as a pastor in their churches? How should churches go about that?
Well, churches do need to have a proactive plan of promoting what it means to give through the Southern Baptist Convention. Stewardship involves not only teaching the biblical parameters of stewardship, what all is involved in that, but also explaining what does it mean to be a Southern Baptist, who we are and how we operate. And the cooperative program is crucial to that. So I think pastors, and I encourage my students, and I've taught hundreds, even thousands in my career as I've served 18 years at Southwestern Seminary. And during that time, I don't know how many students I've taught, clearly hundreds, maybe even thousands. And I basically encourage them, when they get out there and they're pastoring that church, or they're an associate pastor, or whatever role they're in on the staff, be sure and educate the church on the importance of the cooperative program, how it furnishes funding for all of our entities and our agencies, and particularly the North American Mission Board and the International Mission Board, how crucial that is, that if without the churches, there would be no cooperative program. And so I encourage them, that knowing they will be on the front lines, that they need to have a proactive plan of teaching their church why the cooperative program is vital to the success, to the health of the Southern Baptist Convention. And so these are the kinds of things that I encourage them to do. I encourage my students to gradually work annually in their church budget to increase the cooperative program. You know, I tell them, look, where are you? Are you at 5%? Then over the next 5 years, see if you can lead your people to grow that giving 1% per year, so that you can get that up to 10%, and then maybe even beyond. Mm-hmm. These are the kinds of things that I tell our students relative to the cooperative program.
So let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about your desire to serve as SBC president. What do you see are the responsibilities of the SBC president?
Well, the SBC president, surprisingly, has a minimal amount of responsibilities, other than, of course, chairing the meeting of the SBC during the June meeting. Beyond that, his responsibilities are somewhat limited. Of course, one of those responsibilities is to be a cheerleader and a spokesman for all of the churches, to all of our agencies and entities, and vice versa, from our agencies and entities to all of those churches, for all of the good things that we do as Southern Baptists. And whatever we're doing well, keep up the good work. I think that's an important role of a Southern Baptist Convention president. But of course, one of the vital roles is the appointment of the Committee on Committees. And the reason that's crucial, because that committee then appoints a committee on nominations. And then it is that committee that winds up essentially recommending people to serve on the boards of trustees of our agencies and our entities in the Southern Baptist Convention. And because all of our agencies and entities are governed by boards of trustees, that role of the president, that responsibility of the president, is crucial. Mm-hmm. I consider that to be one of the most vital roles that the convention president has. And of course, if I'm elected president, that would be something that I would give very careful prayer and attention to, that I would only recommend, only place people on that committee on committees who are solidly Southern Baptist, doctrinally solid, and cooperatively solid, committed to cooperating in the Southern Baptist Convention, but also who believe in truth, trust, and transparency, who will make sure that they only put on that nominating committee, who will be selecting our boards of trustees, individuals there, that they will only select people who will operate from a posture of truth, trust, and transparency, and that would be their pledge to me as president, but to all Southern Baptists. That would be an important goal of mine. And then I think as I have opportunity, if I were to be elected, the convention president travels around and preaches in a lot of different ways and to a lot of our churches. I would want to be someone who represents us well to all of our churches, and in any other aspects, whether it be in publicity, whether it be in the press, whether it be in a public way, because the president is somewhat of the public persona of the convention. And I would believe it is important to represent the convention well, with integrity. And that would be my goal, or among my goals, if I were elected as president of the Southern Baptist Convention.
So you mentioned the word transparency a couple of times. That is a topic that has received a lot of attention in the last few months or even few years in the SBC. What do you mean by that? And what's your take on transparency in the SBC? What does that look like in practice?
Well, I think there are two aspects to the issue of transparency that I'm talking about, and that I think Southern Baptists are calling for now. Number one would be the issue of financial transparency. Southern Baptists are the ones who pay the bills. They're the ones who, of course, provide the funding through their giving to the local churches, and then through the cooperative program, state conventions, and then on to our national convention. They are the ones who are paying the bills. Because they're paying the bills, they do have a right to know how and where that money is being spent. And I do believe our agencies and our entities, I think our agency and entity heads, as well as boards of trustees, have a responsibility, a trusteeship, to be forthcoming with basic financial information that people want to know. And I think that's doable, and I think that's wise. And I think it's a matter of accountability for our institutions, our agencies, our entities, to be willing, to be open and forthcoming with that kind of transparency. I think that's important. So number one would be financial, but number two is just the transparency of what are we doing? Here's what we're doing as an agency or an entity head. And the reason I think this is important is because of what I learned in my first year of my first pastorate back in 1982. I had an old deacon who came to me and who said, "David, what people are not up on, they're down on." And he said, good communication to the church is the key to a major key to unity in the church. He said, as Baptists as the old saying goes among Baptists, trust the Lord and tell the people. Well, I didn't always follow that advice. To my chagrin, I did not always learn from that. I tried to, and I'm learning through the years how important that is. But I think that's what we need. That's what I mean by transparency. There needs to be a level of openness. This is an issue of trust. If Southern Baptists feel that their entities or agencies or leaders or boards of trustees are trying to hide things, then perception is reality. Those are three words I've tried to live by in my ministry. Perception is reality. Even though it may not be reality, its perception is reality to people. And so if they perceive something is amiss, then for them something is amiss. And it's important for our agencies and institutions, I think, to be transparent, not to stonewall messengers when they ask questions, both privately, sending letters or emails to entities about, can you tell me about XYZ, as well as publicly in the Southern Baptist Convention Annual Meeting, asking questions from the floor. They deserve forthright answers. I think that's a matter of accountability. And I think it's important. It's a two-way street. We have to trust one another. But when we don't have trust, then, and when communication breaks down, then we lose trust. And when we lose trust, we lose the foundation of cooperation. And when we lose the foundation of cooperation, we lose ministry effectiveness. And that's why I think transparency is really crucial at this point, at this stage in our Southern Baptist Convention.
Okay. In addition to transparency, what do you see are some other pressing issues facing the SBC right now?
Well, we have, I think, a number of pressing issues. That's certainly one of them. Obviously, how we continue to respond to the issue of sexual abuse is a vital part of what we need to be continuing to do in the SBC. Sexual abuse has to be addressed. It cannot be it cannot be swept under the rug. It cannot be denied. Now, if people ask and want to say, hey, there is a tremendous crisis of sexual abuse in the Southern Baptist Convention, my experience and my travels and talking to pastors and being aware of the issues, that word is too strong to describe sexual abuse. We don't have a crisis. But we do have a problem. And by the way, the debate shouldn't be over is sexual abuse a crisis or not. If there is one act of sexual abuse, that's a crisis to people. And it is wrong, it is sinful, it's an egregious sin, and it should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And so I think we need to address those issues in a wise way. And I've suggested 5 things that I think are important, or 5 principles that to me are crucial as we move forward as a convention, which, by the way, I think we proved in 5 years by our repeated actions and our votes, we are willing to address the sexual abuse issue. And I think that's important. We are attempting to address it. Where some disagree is over the methodology of how to address it, but I think all of Southern Baptists agree it must be addressed. But I think there are 5 key principles here that have to happen with it. Number 1 is that we have to do it by biblical principles. We have to have justice, but it must be biblical justice. We have to have genuine compassion for those who are survivors of sexual abuse. We have to have a financially prudent plan to address this issue. We have to have sound legal strategies to address it. And finally, a methodologically wise blueprint for action. And so if I'm president of Southern Baptist Convention, I want to learn what I can about what is being done, what's the executive committee doing, what are the recommendations coming about this, and then let's continue to move forward in a positive way, not a negative way, but a positive way with transparency on this issue of how we would address it. I see that as one of the major issues. Of course, another major issue that we are facing as a convention, specifically this upcoming convention, is the law amendment. And there's quite a bit of discussion going on about that now, but that also is a crucial issue that faces us here as we approach the June convention.
So talk to me about that. Talk to me just in general about women serving in ministry, and then also more specifically about the law amendment.
Well, first of all, regarding women in ministry, where would Southern Baptists be if women did not serve in roles of ministry? I can tell you where we would be. Nowhere. Because if you look at the history of the Southern Baptist Convention, the role of women in ministry service in our local churches is crucial. It's vital. My mother served for 25 years as what in those old days was called a secretary, but she was the financial secretary of my home church, serving in that role for 25 years. She also served in another church with that role. And when I think of what women do in our local churches and how vital their support is and their service is, I shudder to think where we would be without the service of the godly women in the history of our convention. Where we would be in missions. Women have played such a vital and crucial role in the role of missions in Southern Baptist life. There's so much to be said there. But the law amendment specifically addresses an important issue, and that is who should be a pastor of a local church. And of course, our doctrinal statement addresses that very clearly. And biblically, we believe Scripture addresses it clearly that the role of pastor or elder or overseer, those three terms that are used interchangeably for the office of a local church pastor, that should be filled only by men. And that seems clear, number one, in Scripture. And the law amendment is an attempt to clarify that in our bylaws. If the law amendment is passed, it goes into our Constitution and bylaws, and it is an attempt to clarify that only men should serve in that capacity. I'm 100% in support of that, by the way. I think that is important. I think it's an important clarification. I think it is much needed. But this is an issue that is facing us in this upcoming convention meeting, and there is disagreement on it among many, and we're seeing that disagreement, and it's a discussion. I'm grateful it's a discussion, not so much a debate, certainly not a rancorous debate, I don't think, but it is a discussion that is ongoing and should be as we approach the convention and make decisions of a very vital nature related to where we will stand on this issue doctrinally and practically.
Well, thank you for that. As we kind of move toward closing here, are there any initiatives that you would seek to pursue as SBC president?
Well, the only initiatives, I'm not interested in trying to start a lot of new things by any means. But I'll tell you what I am interested in doing, and that is supporting all of the great things that we are doing and refocusing on the main thing. All of these problems that we face as a convention have become distractions. And unfortunately, they have distracted some of us, I'm afraid, from the main thing. The main thing is missions, evangelism, and preaching, and church planning. And I would want to get back to that. To me, that's absolutely crucial. This would be something I would want to champion. This would be something I would want to talk about. Let's address the problems. Don't ignore them. Don't sweep them under the rug. But let's try to refocus and make the main thing the main thing. You know, for example, church planning. One of the things that I would want to do to try to assist and support what NAM is doing for our church planners is to ask local churches to be willing to partner with those new church plants that are locally, that are within their region, maybe within a 20 or 30 mile radius of where they might be located. You know, the amount of money that NAM can give to a church plant is really, when you think about it, minimal compared to what it takes to start a new church. And the NAM money is for 3 years, essentially, at a diminishing rate over 3 years. And then those churches don't receive support anymore. I would like to ask Southern Baptist churches to partner with those NAM churches and partner with them not only in prayer, but also financially. And let's step in there and help NAM and help these local churches. They'll have a much better chance of long-term survival if local churches will step up to the plate and be willing to financially help support some of these new church plants. That's partnering with NAM. Of course, we already support NAM through our money, through the Cooperative program. But this is something that local churches, I think, could do to assist those church planners, those new church starts. And this would be something that I would, if you want to call that an initiative, I guess, but something that I would want to champion for the furtherance of the kingdom with our new church plants out there.
Well, that's been really helpful. Thank you so much. Any final comments or anything you want to add?
Well, I think I would just say that Southern Baptists have been used of God in the past, but God is not through with Southern Baptists. I know there are some people who are beginning to sound very negative about the future of the Southern Baptist Convention. But I want you to know the bathwater may be dirty, to some extent, but there is a baby in it. And I think that baby is worth saving. And the Southern Baptist Convention can see great days ahead, but we must recognize that we have to do it God's way. We have to be solidly biblical in everything that we do. We have to walk before God on our knees. We have to be humble before Him. And I would close out with this, and this is I'm ashamed to tell this story really in one sense, but when I was in my first pastorate in 1982, the first 2 years, our church in Dallas grew proportionately one of the fastest growing churches. We were small, we weren't a large church, but proportionally we received the awards a couple of years there from the Dallas Baptist Association for being one of the fastest growing churches in Dallas. And I remember I used to read all the church growth books. And the church growth books told me that if I would go out on my parking lot during Sunday school, count the number of cars in my parking lot and multiply by 2.3. That would tell me how many people were in Sunday school that day. And I'm ashamed to tell you this, but I would go out I wanted our church this Sunday to be more than we had last Sunday. And that was just such a big deal to me. Let's grow, go, go, And I'd go out there and count those cars, multiply by 2.3. And sure enough, almost to the number, that's how many people were in Sunday school. I would know before the report came out Monday morning. And I'll tell you what broke me of that. Vance Havner. Vance Havner was an old evangelist, Southern Baptist evangelist, Bible conference teacher. And I heard him say this in a sermon to pastors. He said, some of you pastors are more concerned about the absence of the people than the presence of the Lord. And that stung me. And God got all over me about that. And He said, David, that's you right there. And so really, here's my closing point. There is nothing wrong in the Southern Baptist Convention that the presence of the Lord cannot resolve. And that's what I believe with all of my heart. And that's why I'm a candidate to be president of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Well, Dr. Allen, I really appreciate your time today. I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's certainly been a pleasure to be with you, and I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on Baptist Press this week. We hope that you will follow us at baptistpress.com, where we cover all things Southern Baptist, and read there how you can sign up for our morning and afternoon emails and stay informed about the annual meeting and a lot more. Once again, join us at baptistpress.com.